It's not a strange thing that even as a Christian, you can sometimes feel inadequate. Even as someone who has discovered purpose, who is walking with God, who has a working relationship with God, that sometimes you can actually find yourself experiencing this feeling of inadequacy. It's not a strange thing, and it is not a sin. Neither is it a how do I put it? It's not totally a bad thing to say. It is actually very human of us to feel in such way, right? Have you ever had this feeling of inadequacy? What did you do to combat this feeling of inadequacy? I would love to hear from you. Now, how do you overcome this feeling of inadequacy? How do you go past this feeling of inadequacy? Because the problem with this is that most times, if we dwell on this feeling of inadequacy, if we allow it to get to us, if we allow it to overwhelm us, if we allow it to tarry for long, it can actually cause you to abort mission. It can actually cause you to procrastinate on a particular project, so much so that you could miss out on God's timing for that particular project, or you can even stop it totally and not do it simply because you feel inadequate. You feel that you're not able to do it. You feel that you don't have the ability or the capability to actually do these things, even though you know that God has instructed you to do it, or God has laid it in your heart to do it. You have to make sure you overcome this feeling. You cannot allow this feeling to truncate what God has asked you to do, to truncate God's purpose for your life, to truncate a project that God has already designed to help a lot of people out there, right? So what can you do to actually overcome this feeling of inadequacy? Number one, the first thing that I will advise is that every time you experience this feeling of inadequacy, what you should do is run back to God. That's what I do. Okay, that is what I do. That's the first thing that I might not do it as the first thing, but I guarantee you this is the first thing you should do. Run back to God. Go to God in prayer. Tell him exactly how you feel. Tell him how this feeling of inadequacy is beginning to, get to you. Just talk to God. Be vulnerable, be honest. Don't try to form strong woman. Don't try to form strong man for God. He understands you more than you know yourself or understand yourself. So you be vulnerable and tell God exactly how it is, and ask him for grace. Ask him for grace. Ask him to strengthen you. He has laid this in your heart. He has instructed you to carry out this or that. You tell him and ask him for grace, ask him for empowerment, ask him for strength. All right. And when you do that, I guarantee you're going to get help. God does not leave us helpless. That's one thing I have learned. If there's anything I know about him, is the fact that he does not leave us helpless. Tell God about it. Then the next thing, of course, you can do is every time this feeling start to rise up or well up within you, counter it by speaking who you are, by speaking the word of God. All right, what has God said? Who has God called you? All right, when you begin to feel that, oh, I cannot do this, you remember that the word of God says that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and you speak it out. You throw it back at that feeling. Speak it out loud. Don't just think it. Speak it out loud. Okay, you begin to speak the word of God. Say, no, I am the light of the world. All right, you speak it out. You say, no, he that is in me is greater than he that is in the world. You speak it out and say, my competence is not of me, it is of God. It is God that actually makes me competent. I am not competent because of who I am, of myself, all right, by my own power, but my competence is of God. When you begin to throw these words back, you begin to say it out loud, you begin to affirm who you are, you will discover that this feeling of inadequacy will eventually give way. So number one, talk to God. Number two, tell yourself, speak the word of God, speak who God has called you out, speak it out loud to your hearing, and this feeling of inadequacy will give way. The third thing you can also do is to go ahead and listen to teachings that will help you overcome it. All right, if you know trusted people, for example, there are people that I listen to. When I listen to their teachings, their video clips, their podcasts, their YouTube videos, whatever it is that they have put out there, their content, when I listen to them, it motivates me, it inspires me. I get kind of I get stirred up in my spirit to act, right? If you have such people in your life, go ahead and go look for some of their contents and listen to. Now, the reason why I said seek God first is this: when you try to do the other two on your own, it might not work. But when you have spoken to God, when you have told God how it is, and you've asked Him for help, and then you go ahead to do the other two, they will work. All things will work together for your good. In fact, God will line it up in such a way that the videos you will encounter will be the exact videos you need, or the podcast you will listen to will be the exact podcast you need to lift your spirit. All right, so make sure you do not miss talking to God about it. Talk to God about it. Speak the word of God over your life. What are those things that God has called you? Say it. I'm a royal priesthood. I'm a holy nation. Okay? Say it. Speak it out loud. I can do all things to Christ who strengthens me. My competence is of God. It's not of me. It's not about self. It is God who is my backing. You speak it out loud, and then you go ahead and watch one or two videos, or listen to one or two podcasts, and God will use these things as instrument to actually lift you out of such feelings of inadequacy. Remember, your competence is of God. It is God that has called you. It is God who has qualified you. So talk to Him first, and every other thing will work out perfectly to His glory. I'll see you again in my next video. Until then, if you have not subscribed to this channel, kindly click the subscribe button, like this video so that more people will get to see it, and drop a comment. Stay blessed and keep step with the Master.